Well, welcome. Thanks for coming to today's webinar. It's great seeing so many people here. My name is Miko. I'm the Member Services Librarian for Public Services at CCS. My role is to provide training, consulting services, and ILS support for our member libraries. My focus is on providing those services for public-facing staff, but I'm also the CCS project lead for this migration. So today's webinar is it's really the kickoff for our training for the migration. And the goal today is to give you an introduction to CCS and to the Polaris ILS software. So this webinar is being recorded. It will be available online for anyone who is not able to attend today, or if you just want to revisit it at a later date and do a rewatch. So here is what we'll be looking at this session. We're going to start with a quick overview of CCS. And then I want to give you some essential information about Polaris, pretty much just kind of introducing you to like a lot of the major terms and tools you'll be hearing. And we're going to spend about half of our time today in LEAP, which is the Polaris web application. And here I'll demo some basic functions, just kind of get you started. After that, we'll go through an overview of the migration project, and then we're going to wrap up by talking just a few things you can do to prepare for go live. And then whatever time we have left at the end will be dedicated for questions. So let's get started with that overview of CCS. Now, when you hear CCS, that can refer to both our shared network of libraries and to the CCS office staff. So when we use CCS to reference that network of libraries, we're talking about our group of 29 public libraries in the north and northwest suburbs. So you see all of our libraries pinned on the map. We've got Warren Newport pinned in blue. And so they geographically range from Lincolnwood on that kind of south end to Huntley on the west side and Zion Benton Public Library at the northernmost point. So you guys, Warren Newport is our 29th library. Next year in 2024, we will be migrating in Mount Prospect Public Library. So they will be our 30th member. Some major benefits of being part of this network, part of this consortium, is that it facilitates resource sharing as well as access to member support. And in order to facilitate this resource sharing, CCS libraries all have a shared database, which is our Polaris ILS. So in Polaris, we have over 1 million title records and about 5 million items. So this means when patrons are searching the online catalog, they not only search and view Warren Newport holdings, but also the holdings from all other 28 CCS libraries. This also means that you can check out and check in items from other CCS libraries without needing to take any extra steps like creating a temporary ILL record. Now, in addition to those title and item records, you will also have access to patron records from these other CCS libraries. So this means that a patron from like Grays Lake Public Library can come to Warren Newport, use their card to check out, and again, staff don't need to take any extra steps. They don't need to like register that Grays Lake user's card. And just like patrons from other CCS libraries can check out and return their items at Warren Newport patrons will also now have the ability to just walk into another CCS library and use their card there without any additional cards set up. Patrons can also make requests through intra-CCS loan. So they can place a hold from the online catalog. And if it's not available at Warren Newport, that hold can now automatically be filled by another CCS library. So another CCS library's item can automatically fill the hold, and our deliveries are still handled by Rails. So members share about 2 million resources annually through our reciprocal borrowing and interlibrary loan. Actually over 99% of holds are filled through either local or inter-CCS loans. So system-wide, only about 1% of our holds need to be filled outside of our system. Now, earlier I mentioned that CCS can also refer to the CCS office staff. We have 9 staff who work between 3 different departments: admin, IT, and member services. And member services staff will be leading your training for the migration, so you'll likely see us around the building from time to time. And here is a selection of the services that we offer. So we manage the Polaris ILS database. We keep the data usable and secure. We manage upgrades. We test and implement new features. So any kind of ILS work like that. We also provide training, mostly group training, but we also can do like custom training. We provide online courses. And then we provide things like general member support, general consulting, custom reporting, networking opportunities, such as our member technical groups. We also do user experience testing. So Kathleen is our user experience specialist, and she performs UX testing with patrons, which then helps us inform decisions on things that impact the patron experience, like our online catalog. And then finally, we also provide centralized authority control, just to ensure those headings are standardized, and we all maintain access to records. I just want to touch on the channels that you can access in order to get that support, that training, and those other services. So to start with, our website, ccslib.org, has links to all of our tools and documentation. So if you want to learn how to do a thing, chances are there's going to be a page on our website. I also want to highlight web reports, which is the CCS report repository. This is where staff can access any system standard reports that we provide. So like, for example, we have reports that will help you fill out your IPLAR every year. We also have like custom reports that we can create for an individual library. So for those 2 sites, you will use your Rails L2 login to access. And then I think many of you are already subscribed to CCS News, which is our weekly email newsletter. CCS News has things like relevant updates about the consortium, and it's where you can find that information about any upcoming continuing ed opportunities. We also have CCS listservs. Most important listserv is going to be our system status one. This is where we communicate service updates. So things like we're experiencing service interruption with Polaris. We have alerts on scheduled software updates, or even if a library has like an emergency closure, we just want to get that word out to our membership. And then aside from system status, we have a number of other listservs that are focused on a particular service area. And staff can post questions or share ideas from your colleagues at other libraries. So one of the main ways that library staff communicate with CCS is through our help desk, which is our support ticket system. You can ask questions by going to the help desk website, which is help.ccslib.org, or you can just email help@ccslib.org. It all goes to the same place. Email will auto open a ticket for you. Then finally, we do offer emergency support as well. Our office is normally open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But during evenings and weekends, we still always have a staff member on call for emergencies. So if it's Friday night and the ILS goes down, you can call our main line and be connected with the CCS staff member right away. Next, we're going to start with the Polaris stuff now. So I want to take you through some essentials about Polaris. So in this part of the agenda, I'm going to introduce you to the different Polaris applications, which are the tools that your staff will be using. These are terms that you are going to start hearing a lot of as you start training and exploring the new ILS. So when we talk about Polaris, Polaris is our ILS software. When you hear it, it's referring to the shared CCS database as a whole. And then Polaris is made up of a lot of different applications. LEAP is the big one. So LEAP is the Polaris staff web application. And this just means LEAP is browser-based. So anyone who's got a username, a browser, and internet connection can access LEAP. So this means that you don't need any special software downloaded or installed on your computer to use LEAP. If you have like a mobile hotspot and a tablet, you can go do outreach at schools or at a farmer's market, and you'll have access to that full ILS. Or if you're like pulling for the pick list, you can grab a tablet, log into Leap, and you can go into Stack's View a Live pick list, pull your items. So all of public services day-to-day ILS activities will be done in Leap. So this will include circulation, adult services, your kids and teens, ILL. So all of your training will be in Leap. Now the staff client is the Polaris staff desktop application. So unlike Leap, you do need the client installed on a computer in order to access it. So this is definitely more your traditional ILS application. While public services staff will be working all in Leap, tech services staff for now will be working in both Leap and the staff client. And that's because they're still building technical services functionalities into Leap. So tech services staff don't quite yet have that one-to-one parity between Leap and the staff client. We do anticipate within the next few years, tech services staff will be able to work entirely in Leap as well. One term I'm going to be using a lot, particularly in the demo, are work forms. So in both Leap and the staff client, open pages, tools, or record, these are all referred to as work forms. So here in the screenshot, I've got an open bib record on one side, open patron record on the other side. Both of these are considered work forms. You will also hear about PowerPack a lot. That is the Polaris online catalog. So the library is currently in the process of setting up your PowerPack. When I put these slides together, we didn't have any of your branding up yet. So I've got a screenshot here of Morton Grove's PowerPack homepage. So every PowerPack in our system pretty much has the same structure, but then every library has their own like PowerPack instance where you can add in your own branding, your own color palette, and you can also kind of customize some of the content elements. So in the screenshot, if you see, there's that scroll of covers. Those scrolls are called carousels. So staff are able to kind of create groupings of records to display to your patrons. My colleague Kathleen will be leading the PowerPack training webinar next month. So that's where you'll learn how to do everything in PowerPack. What you'll see what the patron experience is going to be like and preview everything. And finally, there's also Simply Reports, which is the Polaris Reports application. So I mentioned that CCS offers system reports and custom reports for libraries, but staff also have access to Simply Reports. And this is where you can build your own reports on things like item records for reading reports. You can do patron reports, hold lists, and more. So Simply Reports is also a web-based application. So just like Leap, all you need to access is your Polaris login, web browser, and internet connection. A couple terms that you're going to hear throughout the migration process is production versus training. So you'll hear things like the production environment or the production database versus the training environment or the training database. That's basically because we have two different spaces. We have our production environment, which is our live environment. It's where the library's day-to-day happens. And then we have our training environment, which is the sandbox environment that we use for training staff, testing new features or new settings. So while they're pretty identical, there's some visual clues to differentiate them. So the production environment uses a blue theme, the training environment uses a red theme. As you're training, you'll be working in the training environment. So you're going to be pretty used to seeing that red theme to start with. And then once you're live with CCS and Polaris, you'll be on the production environment for your day-to-day work. Now, library staff always have access to the training environment. So if you're training a new coworker, or you just kind of want to get in, play around, and test things out without impacting patron records or your stats, you will always have access to the training environment even after go live. One other aspect to Polaris is the organizational hierarchy. So we've got 3 levels: system level, a library level, and a branch level. And here's how it looks like for you. So at the system level, are CCS libraries as a whole. So when we talk about, oh, good question. I'm going to pause real quick for this question. How frequently is the training environment updated? That is usually dependent on project work. So for example, if we are we're onboarding, we're in Newport right now, so we're not going to do any kind of data syncs with our training environments because we don't want to disrupt that data. So it's typically tied into software updates. So it can happen, I would say quarterly has been the most frequent, uh, couple times a year. Um, so the system level, you'll hear the system level referenced when it comes to things like system-wide settings, right? So when we talk about system-wide settings, we're talking about something that applies to all CCS libraries. The library level is your institution. So we have Warren Newport Public Library. And then the branch level are the actual physical locations. So for Warren Newport, that means you have 2 branches. You have the Warren Newport Public Library branch, which is your main building. And then you also have your mobile services branch. So you'll see these branch locations come into play when we do our LEAP demo. Which takes us right into the next part of our session. So for the demo, I'm going to take you through some LEAP basics, like logging in, how to do a basic search. We're going to look at some records together, and then I'll just kind of throughout show you some LEAP tips and some tools. So this demo is just going to scratch the surface. You're going to be learning how to do so many more things in your upcoming training. What I want today is make sure I can get you started so you're able to log in. So the first thing, like I said, first thing we're going to do in Leap is logging in. Polaris logins are going to be different than your current login setup, mostly because in CCS, staff use individual usernames and passwords. So this setup of using individual usernames is really important for database security in Polaris because, again, we have applications like Leap and Simply Reports that are web-based. So we always talk about the perks of a web-based application. Like, how many times have I already said you just need a browser and internet connection? But we don't always hear about the downsides of such easy access. There is a lot of data, particularly patron data, that's accessible in Leap and in Simply Reports. And naturally, libraries have staff turnover. People retire, people leave for other jobs. So if we used shared logins, people who are no longer at the library could still access Leap and Simply Reports through an internet browser. So if we had shared logins, we'd need to change that login password every time someone left the library, which would be a lot of password changes. So with individual logins, staff can keep their own password. If someone leaves the library, that staff's username is deactivated, so they no longer have access to Polaris, but everyone else's logins remain as is. So you have your individual username and password, and you will use this to log into the Polaris applications, which include Leap, the staff client, and Simply Reports. So after go live, your login is going to give you access to both the production version and the training version. But for now, you'll only be able to access like Training Leap, Training Client, Training Simply reports. And then permissions are assigned to usernames. So like all staff have general permissions, and then we're able to assign staff to say like a cataloging permission group if you need permissions to edit or to like delete item records. Or I can assign permissions to give access to something like running a patron report in Simply Reports. So how often will CCS change individuals' passwords? Uh, we do not change them ourselves. We can take requests from libraries if they want to change passwords for an individual user or a group of users. So I'm just going to stop sharing real quick so I can then move over to Leap. There we go. Okay. Yes, and that's a good note, Smriti. CCS will assign passwords for a user. We do try to um, keep them somewhat complex. So we includes letters, numbers, and symbol with both a uppercase and lowercase letters. We do try to keep it at least something you can remember. So we use a password generator tool designed for kids, but it seems to work well for us. So if you're wondering where you got your passwords from, it's from a tool called DinoPass. Okay, so let's do our Leap demo. So I am at our login screen right now. As you can see, it's going to prompt for a domain username and a password. So our domain is CCS /, but with our setup, you don't need to use the domain. So I'll be honest, I never use the domain. I just use my username. Your usernames are all going to start with WRK, which is your Rails 3-letter delivery code. So we kind of adapt that as all of our libraries codes. I am going to log in today as one of our test users. So I'm just entering in my username, entering in my password, and clicking sign in. And then once this is, my Leap login screen has been dormant for quite a while. There we go. After you enter in your username and password, you will see an option to select your branch and your workstation. So this is where you're going to see the Warren Newport Public Library branch and then the mobile services branch. So go ahead and select whichever is appropriate for your role and where you're working. And then you can select a workstation from the list. So choose your workstation based on how your library has these set up. As you can see, some are department-based, some users have dedicated workstations. There are just a few settings, primarily what types of receipts or slips print that are tied to a workstation. So if I log into a Circ workstation, this workstation is probably going to be set up to print things like patron checkout receipts. Another thing I want to note, more than one username can log into a workstation at the same time. So I've got my branch selected, I have my workstation selected, and I'm going to click continue. So we've got our first little visual that we're using the training server. So I have an alert saying this is the training server, and then it gives me the date that the data was last synced. So we can see here, last data sync on March 13th, 2023. That's going to come into play later when we start talking about the migration project as a whole. So once I'm logged in, I've got those few other visual cues that I'm in the training database. First, I've got the red theme going on. I've got the red banner up on top. And then also all of our training applications have a dash training in the URL. So I'm demoing Leap in Chrome, which is the preferred browser for Leap. And then I just want to share a few tips for using a web-based application like Leap. The first tip, best practice is to just have Leap open in one browser tab at a time. So what I want to avoid is like opening that second browser tab and logging into Leap a second time. And that is because, oh, perfect. Chrome is also the preferred browser at Warren Newport. Excellent. Um, that's just because if Leap is in two different tabs, it can kind of get confused in terms of like authenticating users. So it may have a hard time completing transactions. Leap will work in Microsoft Edge. It's just the Chrome is the preferred one. It's the one Innovative does a lot of testing on. Yeah, so question, if a staff member leaves Warren Newport, would a request need to be sent to CCS to terminate or deactivate their account? That is correct. So the library will start working it into your onboarding and outboarding workflows to notify CCS when staff leave and deactivate their account, or when you need new usernames created. Okay, so I just want to kind of point out what you're seeing here, and then we're going to go through the different elements. So very quick, left to right. On the very left-hand side, you're going to see this 3-line menu. Clicking on that will expand to something called the work form tracker. So again, work forms are open pages or records. This tool helps us quickly jump through open recently closed records. So we're going to explore this a little more in a few minutes. Then we have our search tools. So up top, we have a quick search box, and then find. Clicking on find opens up the full Leap find tool. Below that, we have some quick access buttons for circulation functions. So quick access to circ check-in. And as you can see here, anytime I'm opening up a tool or a page, they always have this little close button, and that's how I can shut down whatever page I'm looking at. And then a new patron button. So this will just launch the patron registration form. On the right-hand side of the page, we have a few other options here. The new menu is where you can create a new object. So you'll see there's also an option in here to create new patron record. And then you have a lot of cataloging and acquisitions options, like creating an invoice or a serial holding record. The utilities menu is where you can access various Leap tools, notably the pick list tool. So this is where you would access the pick list within Leap if you didn't want to use a print version. There's also a help menu, which I'll touch on right before we log off. And then your little username menu, which again, we'll come back to a little later on. So let's take a look at these search functions. So the quick search box, this is where you can scan or type in a basic search. So I've got let's see, I've got some barcodes here I can copy and paste to demo with you. So you can scan in like a patron card number, and that's going to open patron record. We can scan, let's see, an item barcode, and that will open us up directly to the item record. But you can also scan an ISBN number or like a UPC, and that will open you up to a bib record. Right, so scan patron barcode, scan an item barcode, scan a ISBN UPC. You can also type in a search here, and Leap is going to try to match you to patron records and bib records. So if I want to search for patron, I can type in their name, or I can type in their email address or phone number. If I'm looking for a bib record, I can try typing in a title or an author, and it's going to search everything at once. So let me start typing in my patron record. If you are watching the recording at home, any patron information on here is going to be blurred out. So you may not see everything fully at this point. I'm just going to pause to see what's in chat. Yes, the ISBN searching functionality is really great. So let me back up a little bit. So as you can see, I started typing in a patron name, and it's trying to match me to patron suggestions and also bib suggestions at the same time. If I see the record I need in my preview, I can click on that to open it up. Otherwise, if there are multiple matches, I can hit enter on my keyboard, or I can click this little magnifying glass, and then it's going to bring up my results list in the Find tool so that I can browse through and select the record that I want. So quick search box, you can scan a barcode to quickly access that record, or you can do a simple bib or patron search. The Find tool is where you can craft more complex searches. So I'm just going to click Find to open that up. So when we open this Find tool up, right up top here is where we're going to see our search setup. So right now, I'm searching patron records. This first column, this tells you what type of record the Find tool is searching. If I want to search a different record, I can click to expand and select if I want to search bib records, item records, etc. Now, if you are someone who searches bib records more often than you're going to search patron records, you can change the default. So each record type has this little star next to it. Selecting that star is going to allow you to change your default. So let's say I tend to search bib records more often than any other kind of record type. I'm going to set that as my default. So I'll click the little star next to bib record, select save to change that to my default. And now let me close out of the Find tool and go back in. Now it's going to open right up to bib records for me. So that first column, this is the type of record that you're searching. The third column here where it says all keyword fields, this is called the qualifier column. This is where you tell Leap what you're searching by. So for bib records, I can search keyword fields, I can search author, I can search title. All of the different options are here for you to select. This field adjusts based on what record type you're searching for. So if we were looking at patron records right now, we'd see a whole different set of qualifiers. And then finally, this last column, this is the type of search that you're doing. So basically, are you doing an and search, an or search, a phrase search? This is another one that will adjust based on what type of record or qualifier you're looking at. So this main search bar here, right underneath my search setup, this is where I can type in my search terms. So right now, let's just do a very general all keyword field search for bib records. I'm going to search everything everywhere all at once. And then I can click enter on my keyboard or hit this little magnifying glass to launch my search. Before I do that, I just want to show you where you can add in filters. So at the end of your search bar, there is a little funnel icon. If you click the funnel icon, it's going to open up the search filter view. And this is where you can add any additional conditions. Um, Going from a standalone to a consortium, one condition that you are going to find you're using more frequently is an assigned branch. So if you wanted to do a search and limit records or limit patrons to just Warren Newport, you can use the assigned branch filter. And then since it's a controlled field, you'll get a nice little drop down where you can select Warren Newport main library, more Newport mobile services. And after you've applied your filters, and see there's a little plus button here, you can apply more than one if you want. After you applied your filters, we'll click apply. My funnel icon is now highlighted in green, so I know my filters are active. Filters will stay active until I close out of my find tool. So once I close on my find tool, the filters will auto reset. Okay, so I'm got my search going. I'm just going to launch my search here to see what we've got. Yep. And then I can select one of these records to open up and get the specifics. One thing I want to point out here, let's see. Oh, yes. So we saw how you can change your default for this record type. There's one other little customization bit that I want to show you in the Find tool. And that's here right next to the magnifying glass. You've got another 3 little line menu. When I click that, I see an option for column settings. And that's going to allow me to do minor customization on what fields display and in what order in my Find tool. So let me open that. I'm going to look at column settings for bib records. So these are settings that are tied to your own username. Adjust them however you want. You're not going to impact your coworker. Got a question here. At the desk, we frequently switch between bib record and patron record. We have to enter assigned library criteria every time, or can we save that part of filter as a favorite? So as a basic search, Leap does not have function yet to where you can save a filter. There is a more advanced search setup. We call it power searching that you can use that will save. I don't want to get into it now since we're just starting out. I will share some links if you kind of want to start exploring it on your own. And then later on, we can absolutely set up some additional training if you'd like. So in the column settings, you can, again, select what fields you want to see, what fields you don't want to see, adjust the position. One thing I want to point out here, I don't know what it's like on your Sierra, we're looking at your Sierra displays, but in Polaris, all CCS libraries share the same bib records. So that means when we're looking at these bib results, anytime we see a call number in the bib results, it's going to be whatever is in the mark field. So it's not a call number that's associated with your library. So one of my recommendations for you when you're looking at bib records is to deactivate this call number because it doesn't mean anything. Okay, cancel out of there. A couple other things too when we're looking at these results list. In Polaris, linked items will tell you how many items are assigned to that bib. So here we see we've got the DVD entry for Everything Everywhere All at Once as 104 linked items. And then holds is going to tell you how many holds are on that title. This is system-wide. So system-wide, we have 141 holds. I'm going to open up, we're going to look at the Blu-ray record today. So that was some very basics about searching. You're going to learn so much more in the searching and the holds session. The next thing I want to do is just quickly take you through the three major records, bib record, item record, and patron record, so that you have some context, you understand what you're looking at. So when I opened up a bib record, it opened up right to this preview tab. And this preview is going to basically show you what the patron sees in the online catalog. So you've got a brief view, a full view, and then an availability view. So each view kind of has just slightly different things. Next to the preview tab are a local items and an all items tab. This shows you all those linked items. So the local items tab will show you Warren Newport's holdings. So this is where you see just your copies. And here you can get information like the shelf location, call number, and the circulation status. All items, as you can probably guess, will show all the copies in CCS associated with this bib record. So it's a big list, but thankfully in the bib records, there is a filter box. So when you have a big and popular bib like this one, you can absolutely filter down the items to get to the information that you want. So let's say you have a patron who wants to know what Gray's Lake has. So you can start typing the library's name in your filter box, and it will limit down to just Gray's Lake copies. Or if you want to have someone who just wants to see what's available, you can start typing in available, and it will limit to just the on-shelf items. So this filter box does look at all of the different columns. And then I did that very quickly. Let me do it again. So I've got available in here. And then if you need to clear out a filter, you'll just click the little X at the end of the filter box and it will clear that out. A few other things about this view. We have a mark tab, which will give you the full mark record if you do ever want to reference something there. And then the statistics tab. This is fairly new. This used to be really basic. It used to just give you bib level stats, and they literally just broke it down to give you branch by branch stats, which is pretty exciting for me. So the stats tab will give you the combined circulation statistics for all those linked items in a bib record, and then again, breaks them down by branch. So we've got Warren Newports in here. And thankfully there's another filter box. So you can start typing in your library's name and it will filter it down. So we can see here that we have, a total of system-wide 86 items that have a lifetime circ of over 1,600. And then Warren Newport has 2 items on this bib with 32 lifetime circs. Let's see. Let me just go through my list, make sure I'm not forgetting anything from those tabs. A few other things I want to highlight in a bib record. First, I just want to point out this control number. This is a unique identifier for this particular bib record. So this is really helpful for troubleshooting. As over the next couple months, you're going to be doing a lot of data testing with records. So if you ever need to report something, this control number is really helpful to reference. A few things I want to point out in links. Under links is where you can access the holds queue for this title. It will be the holds queue for the entire system. And then there's also a pack link. So if we click that, it's going to open up this record in the online catalog, which is really helpful. There it is, because then if you're working with a patron, you can copy and paste that link. So you don't have to open up the Power Pack separately and recreate the search for them. Actions is where you find the option to place a hold. So we're in a bib record right now. If we place a hold here, it's going to place a hold, title level hold, so any eligible copy will be able to fill it. Again, you're going to learn so much more about holds in a future training. And then one really important thing to highlight is this results button. So we accessed this record from a search. And because we did, we have the option to go back to our results list. So if I click results, it's going to close my bib record and take me right back to my search. So if I opened up the wrong record, I can click results, come back here, select the one that I want instead. So that was a very brief overview of bib records. I want to show you a few things in item records next. So in LEAP, everything is linked. So if we're in a bib record and we want to get to an item record, all you need to do is select look for the item that you want and click on the entry, and it will open it up in a new work form. So let's see. Things to highlight here. At the top, we've got our record header, which has a lot of basic info about the item. Everything in LEAP is linked. So if you're in an item record and you need to get to a bib record, this is where you find the link to the bib. There's a bib control number, and then that control number is linked. The details tab, this first tab here, this is all of the item settings and information. So this is where you find things like how many times does an item renew? Or scrolling all the way down, we see the hold settings. So if there's a little checkbox next to holdable, we know this item is eligible to fill holds. I'm currently logged in as a user who does not have item editing permissions. So all of these fields are grayed out. If you do have item editing permissions, you'd be able to edit and modify these fields. I'm just going to click in the circulation tab. If you're watching the recording, again, some of this information is going to be blurred out since there's patron numbers in here. But the circulation tab will give you information on things like the current borrower and the previous borrower. It will also tell you dates associated with that checkout. So this item is currently checked out. So I can see when the patron checked it out, the original due date, and if they renewed the item, like how many times have they renewed it? When's the new due date? There's also a statistics tab in here, and this stats tab will isolate just the stats for this particular copy. We have options for actions and links at the top of this item record. You'll also find an option to access the titles hold queue from the item record. And then under actions, you'll also see an option to place a hold. We do discourage libraries from placing general holds through an item record. And that's because in Polaris, placing a hold directly in an item record is going to place an item level hold. So only this copy is going to be eligible to fill that hold. So that's why it's always best if it's a general hold, just place it on a bib record. That way any eligible item can fill it. We'll have, again, so much more about holds in the holds training. Before we leave the item record, I just want to show you what it looks like when you run into a permission block. So again, I'm logged in as a user who does not have item editing or cataloging permissions. So it means I can't delete items. So if I go in here, I'm just going to try to delete something. It's going to ask me, am I sure? Yeah, I'm sure. And then it's going to give me this permissions override block. So This block is going to tell me specifically what permissions I don't have. And then it does give an option to override. So someone who does have these permissions could come in, enter their credentials, and allow me to take that action. Okay. So I'm going to cancel out of there. So the last record type I want to take a look at is a patron record. Oh, I'm going to pause for a question real quick. How can I go from an open item back to the results list without searching again? So if you access the item record from a search, you'll see that return button in here. Since we access this item record from a bib record, what I could do is close out of my item record, and then back in my bib record, and then I could hit results to go back to my results list. And then I'm done with the search. I'm just going to cancel out. So the last thing, I just want to show you a few things in a patron record. Let me try to copy and scan in my patron barcode. When you open a patron record, it's going to default to the checkout tab. So this is where you can check out to a patron just by scanning an item barcode and set enter item barcode field. The out overdue tab, that's where you can see everything that the patron currently has checked out. So you will be able to see things like the title, when the item is due, how many renewals are left on the item, and if this item could potentially fill a hold that's floating around. Let's see here. And then the account tab is where you can see the patron's fees. You can pay them or waive them here. And then I just want to point out, we've got a holds tab and an ILL tab. So these are both holds that the patron has on their account. The holds tab will give you any like the intra CCS holds. And then the ILL tab will demonstrate or will show the out of system holds. This registration button opens up the patron's registration view. So this is where you can go in and edit their information. Like if you need to update email information, phone number, that sort of thing. And this is also where you find the option to reset someone's password. So if they need to reset their password to log into the online catalog, come into the registration view, click reset password, and that's where you can pop in the new credentials. And then finally, as we've been looking at these records, you may have noticed that each record has this little like eye icon next to the heading. This is an informational or properties view. So this will give you more information about the record. For patrons, it's really helpful. Let me just close. I'm just going to close out of the registration view so you can see. For patrons, this view is really helpful because it allows you to preview things like their contact information, their notification option, their expiration date without having to go into the full registration view. So if someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, when does my card expire? All you need to do is hover over that. You can give them that information. Will patron passwords transfer from Sierra to Polaris? We do have a convention set up for how the passwords are going to be transferred. So they're not able to, Amy, I know we have this set up, and I want to say it's like the last 7 digits of their phone number, but I am not 100% sure on that without referencing. Default. Perfect. So the passwords are going to transfer as the last 7 digits of the patron's phone number. Okay.
I just wanted to mention, Miko, that if somebody had changed their password from the 7 digits, it will not transfer. It will default back to whatever 7 digits are in the phone number field.
So keep that in mind. You're probably gonna have questions about passwords. So just remember, coming in is this little registration button and the reset password option. So you may have noticed I haven't been closing. I'm keeping this record open here. Earlier, I mentioned the work form tracker. I've been referencing things as work forms. So I just kind of want to show you how the work form tracker is going to help you out. And I'm just going to open up a few other, let me see, open up an item record here, and let's open up a bib record here. So I've got a handful of records open at this time. So the work form tracker, it's this little 3-line button. When I was first learning Polaris, my trainer called this the hamburger menu, and it kind of stuck in my head. So mentally, I always call this the hamburger menu. So clicking on the hamburger menu is going to open up the tracker. I'm just going to click this little pin so it stays open for me. And this shows you all of the current records or work forms that you have open, along with some recent records that you've opened and then closed. And this is really helpful because if you are like working with a patron and you have record open, you can use the work form tracker to quickly jump around. So if I'm looking at an item or a bib record, I can quickly get back to my patron record just by clicking on that entry here. While there is no known limit to how many work forms you can have open, best practice is to close them out when you're finished. So if you're finished, once you're finished working with a patron, close out that record, close out whatever bib records you have open. And that's because when you have a record open, it's locked for editing by others. So like if I have a patron record open, CERC can still open them up. They can still check out items to them, but they won't be able to modify their password or update their email or anything like that. And the same thing with an item record. If I have an item record open, tech services won't be able to change the material type or change the call number or do any editing that they need to. So best practice is just to close them as you go along. If you notice at the bottom, there's a nice little close all option. So you can click that to blanket close everything that you have open. My favorite feature here is the recent tab. So if you're working with bib item patron, close it up and then you find, oh, I still need that. Come into your work from tracker and use this recent tab to access those records that you recently closed. So I can come in here. I want to get back into the item record for everything everywhere all at once. I can just open it right back up. So let me unpin that. I'm just going to close this. Rounding out our demo, I want to show you one other little customization area. And that's going to be under the username menu. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm logged in as CCS Temp User 5. I'm going to click on that heading and I see an option for settings. So I'm just going to open up our settings. I'm going to ignore print options. I don't know if you remember when I first logged in, we were looking at workstations and I said print options are tied to the workstations. So these print options tell me what types of receipts and slips that my workstation is going to print. So I don't want to mess this up for my coworkers who are also using this workstation. So I'm just going to ignore that tab and I'm going to go into Workform User Defaults. So this is where you can set default views for your individual username. So this is like when you open a record, what tab or view do you open to by default? So when we open a bib record, it by default open this up to this preview tab, but maybe it would be easier for me if if it opened up right to the local items tab, so I can right away see the copies owned by my library. So as you start working in Leap and you're opening records and figuring out where you click to, just keep these in mind. See if that will help your Leap experience out a little bit. And then the last thing I want to show you in here is this Workform Tracker Recent Records section. So this area is tied to our nice little Workform Tracker to the Recent tab. So right now, our defaults are that it's going to display up to 2 recent records, which maybe for some people is enough. For others, if you look at a lot of item records, you may want to bump that up. So you can say, please retain the last 5 records for each of these. So that way, as you're working and closing, you'll have access to the last 5 records or however many that you closed. And then I'm just going to click save here to save my changes. And let me just show you now. So I updated the default view for my bib record. So I'm just going to search for a new bib. And we'll look at the book version. And if you see now, it does open me right to my local items tab. So I can right away see what my library has. Okay. Before we log out, if you do ever want some help with Leap, you have all of the documentation that's available on our website, but you also have access to the Polaris, the native help files. So under the help drop-down menu, you can click on Leap topics, and that's going to open all of the Leap help articles in a new tab. So to log out, you'll find the logout option under your username dropdown. So I'll click to open up my username menu, and then at the bottom, I have the logout option. It's just going to give you a reminder to save any work before you fully log out. Once I click continue, it'll confirm that I'm logged out. And now Leap is ready for the next person to come and log in. So I'm going to stop sharing Leap and get back to the slides to round us out. So that was very introductory look at Leap. So soon you will do all of the more detailed training where we'll look into more advanced search skills and everything like that. So, okay, let me get to, great. So let's finish today up by talking about the migration project. So 6 major phases in a migration project. We have finished up with 1 through 4. So we are now in the training, data testing, and additional configuration stage of the project. So quickly recapping these completed phases, just so you know what kind of happened at the first stages. Everything started out with onboarding. So this is basically just kind of getting paperwork, billing, and contracts in order, getting the project organized and the schedule set. After onboarding came profiling, and this is where we established Warren Newport's settings and your circulation policies. So profiling is really figuring out how to build your library into Polaris. So setting policies like checkout limits and loan periods. So at this time, CCS built your library and input all the values and all the settings into the Polaris database. So this is where we're getting the library's architecture in place. Once the architecture was in place, we can then move on to the data extract. So back on March 13th, Innovative took a copy of your Sierra database which included all the different records and data points. And this data extract becomes our rough draft data. This is the data that we are going to use for testing and training throughout the remainder of the project. But before we can load that data copy into the CCS training environment, we needed to figure out how to take those Sierra records and that data and fit it into the Polaris architecture. So during the mapping phase, we take a Sierra value, and we map that data to the appropriate Polaris value. In my opinion, this is the most challenging phase of the project. Some of this can be easy, like there's some values that might be able to translate one-to-one from an ILS to another. But so many parts of mapping is challenging because there's data points that exist in Sierra that don't exist in Polaris and vice versa. And mapping is all about figuring out how those data points should be translated and fit together during mapping. Once that mapping was complete, Innovative was able to take the data copy from the extract and load that into the CCS Polaris training environment. Also at this time, CCS built Warren Newport staff usernames, generated those passwords, and assigned permissions. So just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we are currently in phase 5. So now that the data is loaded and staff have usernames, we are able to start training, data testing, and working on all the additional configuration. So CCS staff will be training Warren Newport staff on how to use Polaris, including our system policies and local practices. So we'll be leading training on circulation, cataloging, acquisitions, Power Pack, all the good things. And then to supplement the formal training sessions, your internal project team or your managers will find opportunities for additional learning. So along with training, staff will also be data testing. And this is where we make sure that records and data came over as we anticipated, and that settings and policies are built into Polaris correctly. This is the 5th migration that I've been part of at CCS. And one constant during migration projects is that no matter how well everything else goes, all the profiling, mapping, data extract, there's always going to be data exceptions or something that like theoretically maps really well from one ILS to another, but in practice doesn't quite work as anticipated. And these are the types of things that data testing is going to help us catch and fix so that those exceptions and oddities migrate over properly at go live. So during data testing, you'll be reviewing all different kinds of records to make sure that data points are correct. You'll make sure that you can complete key actions and workflows without running into blocks or issues. And again, this is where we catch and correct those data things before going live. So when you identify an issue, Warren Newport will report issues to CCS through the CCS help desk, and then CCS will work with Innovative to get those fixed. One thing I want to point out here is that the data in our training database, as you saw when I logged in to LEAP, training in the training database is from March. So that initial data extract happened March 13th. And that's the data that we're working with during training and data testing. So we want to like think back to March, right? You had things checked out that you've long since returned. But since the data copy is from March, you're still going to see those checkouts when you look at your record in the Polaris training database. So when we're data testing and evaluating data, you're going to be looking at things like, is the call number in this Polaris item record match the call number in the Sierra item record? Anything that's more transactional, like comparing what you had checked out in Polaris versus what you have currently checked out in Sierra, that that kind of stuff doesn't fall under the umbrella of data testing, since again, we're working with a snapshot of data from March. And also at this time is where all of the other ILS or ILS adjacent configuration is going to happen. So setting things up like your power pack, getting any tools or third-party vendors that authenticate with SIP set up as well. And then our big event, go live. When we mention go live, it doesn't just include that day that you start live on Polaris. It also includes basically the week leading up to your go live day when all your data is getting prepped. So this really begins after you close on Wednesday, August 30th. So August 30th is going to be your last day on Sierra. Once the library closes, Innovative will do a final data extract. So just like they did that data extract in March, they're basically going to extract a copy of your Sierra data. Starting the following morning, you're going to be working on Polaris Offline. CCS will be leading a Polaris Offline webinar for all of our libraries closer to go live, so everything is fresh in your mind. If you've worked with any kind of offline mode before, you know that services are pretty limited. So you'll be able to check out to patrons and like register new patron records, but you won't be able to do things like check in items, catalog new items, that sort of thing. So once the offline period begins, Innovative will start prepping your data for Polaris. The following day, Friday, September 1st, all of our CCS libraries are going to begin using Polaris Offline so that Innovative can start loading and processing your data. This data load and processing is going to take several days. The offline period was timed to coincide with the Labor Day weekend, since all of our libraries are closed Sunday and Monday. So there's at least 2 days while the data is getting prepped that the library is closed. And then finally, starting Wednesday, September 6th, Warren Newport will start using Polaris. So Wednesday, September 6th, you will officially be live with CCS. We will have some CCS staff on site that go live day for support. So that is what the go live timeline is going to look like. And I just want to wrap things up by talking about some things you can do to help prepare yourself for go live. The first thing, obviously, is to attend your scheduled training. We'll be learning together in a group setting, so it's a great place to get hands-on practice and ask questions. I also encourage you to check out our online courses. We have a number of online courses that you can use for like individual, just on-demand training. They are structured, so you can progress through them if you want, or you're able to jump around. If you just want to revisit a single topic, you can absolutely just pick and choose what you want to learn. They're made up of videos, links to our how-to pages. We have software simulations on there, as well as like step-by-step guided activities. And then I want to plug for one-to-one exploration. So this will be like looking at a record in Sierra and then comparing the record in Polaris. It's just going to help you understand how the data migrated and the differences, how the two ILS systems present that data. So like when comparing a patron record in Sierra to that patron record in Polaris, you can kind of see like, okay, here's where their notice settings appear in Sierra. This is where I can get that information in the Polaris record, but like, hey, maybe there's an additional setting that's not part of Sierra. So one-to-one comparison with records really helps get your eyes used to those differences. Or one-to-one exploration can also include like replicating an action from Sierra. So, when you're at the service desk, make a note of some of the searches that you're doing or some of the actions that you're performing. So then later on, you can go into Leap and say, okay, how would I replicate this search here? Of course, data testing is also a great way to help get used to looking at Polaris records. Again, Polaris is from, the data in Polaris is from March 13th. So any new items that you've acquired or any new patrons that you've registered since March 13th are not going to be in the training database. So you won't be able to use those records for like data testing or for one-to-one exploration. Finally, don't hesitate to ask questions. Here at CCS, we love getting questions. However, like follow your internal workflows for migration questions, whether that's like sending them to your manager or sending them to the project team. But whatever questions we get, we will do our best to get you some answers. So that concludes our intro to CCS and Polaris webinar. So I want to take whatever time we have left and open it up for questions. Thanks, Smriti.
Hi, I have a question. This is Lauren. In my previous career, I used to work with databases quite a bit, and I was just wondering, do you have any kind of backup plan if for some reason the data, transfer for your go live, if for some reason there was some issues that were found?
So this is the initial data extract was like the big mitigation process. So this is the initial data extract and load in the spring was where we were able to see if there were going to be like any pain points with that. In terms of go live, I'd say Innovative is so on top of things with making sure that if there's any errors, those are caught and basically not catastrophized.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So we did not find any pain points with the initial data load. So everything looks pretty good.
Okay. And another question too is, we used to call our testing user acceptance testing, and it was basically people that were actually going to be working in that particular database for different functions that we wanted to make sure that they were the kind of the primary testers. So I don't know, is that something that you typically define? I don't know where that would be, like, for example, I'm just a part-time circulation shelver. So obviously I would not be testing the database because I probably wouldn't be using it. But obviously some of the front desk and things like that, people like that would actually be doing that. And I was just curious if you had some type of a user test criteria based on the roles of who will be using the database.
I will say that is up to the library, how they would like to kind of dole out data testing assignments. My take is like, I encourage everyone to play around, but that is me.
Yeah, no, and I don't mean to put you off. I mean, I don't mean to, like put you off or any with my questions. And it might actually be something that Smriti would probably be defining anyhow. But again, it was a great presentation, and it just kind of reminded me of my previous job that I used to do. So it's kind of nice, I relate to the whole data migration, the data extract, go live, etc. So presentation.
I would love to hear perspective from people who have been there, done that, especially in other industries, because this every migration, it's always just eye-opening, everything that's involved with data. So it's really, I find it really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. I've got a few other questions in chat. So question, how long is the recording going to be available for? It's going to be available long as you want. We have no plans to take anything down. Will patrons be able to get new items from other CCS libraries or only from their own? This is such a great question. So in terms of, I'm going to answer this a couple different ways. If we're talking about delivery from one library to another, so like patron places hold because they want it sent in as a request from delivery, that is going to depend on your library's policies. Some libraries will share their new stuff right away and allow it to go out on delivery. Other libraries will have like a waiting period of typically 90 days, I think is kind of the max, where 90 days that item will only be eligible to fill holds for your local patrons. And then after, that 90-day period, it opens up. So that's like placing requests and holds on delivery. If we're talking about reciprocal borrowing, so, patron just kind of walking into the library and seeing what's on the shelf, I don't think we have any libraries that restrict in-house checkouts. So I don't think we have any libraries where it's like their new stuff is just for their local patrons. Ooh, is there a list of CCS indexed fields for staff searching and reports purposes? I think we have that somewhere in a digestible form. Nancy, I'm just going to write that down. Let me see if I can get that to you. Any other questions? These have all been really great questions. Well, we still have a few minutes left. I'm going to stick around as long as you want. But we'll say I'm going to turn off the recording. I will share the recording with Amy whenever it's ready, and then feel free to distribute around the library. It's going to be, I will also include, let's see, just looking at my notes here. We also had a question about searching and filters, and I mentioned the more advanced searching method. So I'll share links to that just in case anyone wants to take a look and feels like being brave and jumping right in to the power searching. It's what we call it, the power searching mode right away. Otherwise, thank you all so much for attending this afternoon, and please never hesitate to ask questions. So I'm gonna stop the recording.